All right, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John,
And I'm Jack.
and today we are reviewing the 2005 film Kingdom of Heaven because God wills it!
God wills it. Man, this you, you see, I see what they were going for, and let me just start off with that big historical epic. So you can't, for our dear listeners, you can't really see it, but my colleague Jonathan has an interesting choice of names for the recording of this. Would you mind elaborating?
So our recording program's a lot like Zoom, where you get to just put whatever name you want in your little speech bubble, and my speech bubble name today is Liam Neeson Makes Me Moist.
Interesting. Did it make you moist that he's in this movie for like 15 minutes?
Oh, absolutely. I love Liam Neeson.
I like the part when it said he got shot in the balls.
That was a quippy little snapback he had there. I
Yeah.
once fought that. I once fought for 2 days with an arrow in my testicles.
Yeah, and I love how that was meant to show how the main character got good at sword fighting. When he practiced once, they got ambushed, and then he's suddenly able to hold his own against numerous knights.
Right. I thought there was going to be
It
a different sword fighting kind of joke put in
it
there, but
I'll put that on the back burner. But to be fair, this is Orlando Bloom, so maybe he just knew how to sword fight, kinda. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap between knowing how to wield a sword and working as a blacksmith by trade.
well, when I was looking up stuff on this film, I forgot which like movie review site it was, but they're like Orlando Bloom
No, you were right the first time.
plays a black former soldier who turned blacksmith. I'm like, I don't remember them ever establishing him as having been like a warrior pre blacksmithing career.
They didn't. They didn't. But man, this fucking guy cannot catch a break. His wife dies, commits suicide before the movie even begins. That one cocksucker comes into his shop and is like, "Your wife's dead," and the most predictable thing in the world happens, and Orlando Bloom kills him and inadvertently burns down his place of work, becomes a fugitive of the law, falls in with Liam Neeson. Okay, that's actually a bit of good luck there, but like 5 seconds into his training, he gets ambushed by other people. Then he gets shanghaied off to an adventure in Jerusalem. Then his ship gets sunk on the way there, gets into another scrap, and then against all odds, he makes it to Jerusalem. Just the sheer conga line of bad luck this one poor blacksmith has.
I just am I the only one that's bothered by the fact that so yeah, his journey to Jerusalem definitely like it's a movie. We're getting the Spark Note edition of his journey there. But I was like, okay, so this dude's a blacksmith. He gets one tutelage seminar in the forest that's interrupted. But now and then he gets knighted by his dad that he didn't know was his dad. And the combination of the like, we're gonna need a montage.
Gotta do a lot of training. You gotta do it fast. You're gonna need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
Yeah, like the Team America, like you only need we only need the one scene to establish that he was given some form of training. and suddenly he's like
A
between that and
badass.
getting knighted, that makes him like a proficient warrior, and like like the part where he gets to Jerusalem and he just happens upon other knights of the territory that he is now the baron of, the baron of Ibelin, right?
I
Anyways,
think.
he runs into the knights that he's basically supposed to be in charge of, and their quirky little test is like, what color was his eyes? Like the original Baron's eyes. It's like, just because you know the color of his eyes doesn't mean you know shit about him, or like
And
this
that's
is
such a
stupidest test ever.
that's such a mundane thing that I almost never pay attention to. Partially because of the ADHD thing, but also because, well, gun to your head, what color are my eyes? And I know
I don't
you
know,
can't.
fucking brown.
Okay, yeah, brown's always a safe bet because, okay, yes, they are brown, but it's like, what 60% of the world has brown eyes. I don't know what the
Yeah,
statistics are in Europe per se, but is that not a safe ballpark?
yeah. I mean that is fair,
You're gonna be right 3 out of the 5 times you use that card.
but so so this tiny little training montage establishes him as like a warrior. He is now privy to be a baron, which, granted, don't get me wrong, by the methods of like the medieval world, like obviously there's a lot of people who get titles and positions that they're not qualified for because of lineage and whatever. But like he shows up to his new little territory that
Um,
he's in charge of, and like we get this like building a well scene, and then and then even goes even further on into the movie when, you know, we're jumping ahead now, but when he's setting up the defenses for Jerusalem, and it's like, when did this blacksmith become a fucking
city
civil
planner.
engineer? Like,
Yeah, is like I can suspend my disbelief and say like, okay, maybe there's some overlap. Like if you make swords all day, you're bound to like swing one or two around, right? And
yeah,
it's just something you know how to do. But what's the overlap between blacksmithing and civil engineering? And mind you, it was his own shop, so I guess he would have some experience managing projects and business, but that's quite a few orders of magnitude smaller than managing a city, and not only a city, but one of the most contended, if not the most contended city on earth.
right.
Ah,
Oh, and don't forget, where he's also operating on like college professor level philosophy too.
yeah, yeah, and he plays chess in one scene, I believe.
I will say the chess scene between Balian and King Baldwin was probably one of my favorite scenes in this. It was very well written, and obviously like it sets up uh, a point of contention between the two later on. But I get this is supposed to be like the Holy Land is so inspiring and all that stuff, but I I would have to say this is like one of the most philosophical movies we've ever watched.
Yeah, and King Baldwin is probably one of if not my favorite character in this. I know that's heresy to you because Liam Neeson's in this movie, but deal with it. Um,
Everybody's allowed to have their own favorite character.
Everyone's allowed to their opinions, even if they're blatantly wrong.
Right.
Anyway, um, oh shit, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, and yeah, King Baldwin was my favorite character, and yeah, the chess scene is good for philosophy and whatnot. But I'd just like to add as a side note, I'm kind of tired of chess being the go-to game to establish that a character is intelligent or to like mirror conflict between two characters. It's just dumb. Can we have two characters in a movie playing Warhammer 40K or something?
That
God,
or like
or just or just
tic-tac-toe.
yeah, or just tic-tac-toe or Connect Four or something hilariously mundane. Like, show me a character playing Mousetrap. Have you ever had a game of Mousetrap that went well? Like, show me a character playing Mousetrap and making it work, and I'd be like, God damn, that is one smart and competent character. Chess is overdone and boring. There, I said it.
Don't tell all the people who love Queen's Gambit about that.
I watched a bit of King's Gambit. Queen's Gambit, whatever.
I think I got 3 episodes. I got to whatever point that her like adopted mom figures out she's a chess prodigy and starts profiting off of it.
But like I said, I want a parody movie where it's Warhammer 40K instead of chess. The Neckbeard's Gambit. And go ahead.
No, you continue your thought.
Oh, no, I guarantee it's more profound.
Oh, I was just going to move on to another question, but...
Oh, well, yeah, and it was Edward Norton that played King Baldwin in this, right?
Was it?
Look that. I'm pretty sure it was.
Holy shit! It was Edward Norton.
Yeah, like I didn't know that on my when I watched it, but I like looked it up later. King Baldwin, played by Edward Norton. I was like, huh. Fuck me tender. And I love Edward. I love Edward Norton, but apparently he's notoriously hard to work with.
In what way?
Like, he often clashes with other actors and directors on how things should be done, and yeah, stuff like that. Apparently, he's quite contentious and disagreeable. And again, I've never worked with the guy nor even met him. All right, Twins beat the Phillies. But anyway,
I'm glad to see you're so focused.
Hey, shut up. I get notifications on my phone for this. Like, when I got my new phone last year, before that, I'd been using the same phone since 2016. And I had like no storage on it whatsoever. Like, I kept having to delete a lot of pictures. If I wanted or needed to download a new app, I'd have to delete one and carefully manage my data and whatnot. And then I got this phone which has a shitload of storage on it, so now I can have basically as many apps as I need, and the freedom is nice. And it actually has battery that I don't need to recharge all the time.
That could be helpful.
But anyway, back to the movie. They didn't have phones back then.
No, could you imagine this story if they had like instant notifications?
Instead of the chess scene, they're just playing like Trivia Craft or Candy Crush together.
Fucking iPhone darts.
And instead of a blacksmith, he runs a podcast on medieval weaponry.
And yet, the conversation in this movie and that exists on the internet seems eerily similar.
He's a Bitcoin miner.
Oh, what does their opinion matter? They're Saracens.
Like, he stabs the dude that is giving him grief because the e-girl he simped over died. And then he stabs him and he falls backward into the server, which starts his apartment on fire.
Apparently, so we watched the theatric release version of this. Apparently, in the director's cut, um, that guy who is just like he's just like the random town preacher, and you're like, man, the town preacher is really kind of a dick. But in the director's cut of this, you find out that that dude is actually Balian's brother. So that adds a whole nother level where it's like, okay, my brother's giving me shit about my wife dying. And then he tells me that he cut her head off before burying her. And also he's telling me that she's in hell. Like, that makes way more sense when he goes to stab him. And it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that could have been left in the theatrical release to make that transition a little better.
Yeah. There was quite a bit cut from this movie, wasn't there? Because like the director's cut's like what, 3.5 hours, and the version we saw was 2.5.
Yeah, there's a lot missing.
So much character depth just gone. A million voices cried out.
I wonder how many like other actors were in this that we didn't even know about because of the cuts.
Although maybe we're giving too much credit to the director's cut. I bet there was a lot of crap that got cut out too. That if you were to watch is like, yeah.
I want the 7-hour version of this movie.
Bro, I want the real time version of this movie where it actually takes several. How long was he in Jerusalem? Had to have been like a couple months, right?
I think this had to have been at minimum a year that he was there.
Okay, yeah, I want a year long version of this movie. Damn it! But kind of, as an off note, that is actually a real type of movie, like real time movies, where the time span takes over the course of 1.5, 2 hours, and the movie's 1.5 or 2 hours long. There aren't many of those movies.
Imagine if 127 hours was 127 hours.
Imagine it's from The Rock's perspective, then it's like 108 million years.
Now's my time to shine.
I can't remember what it's called, but we watched it in film class where the movie's about an hour and a half long, and it's about this aging sheriff of a Wild West town that gets wind that bandits are attacking. So he tries to round up a posse to help him, but everyone else candy asses out, and they're like, "Oh, I can't fight. I my wedding's next week, and I don't want to die, and I'm such a pussy." And and no one will help this poor old sheriff. And then he ends up 1v8ing the entire gang and kills them all. And then like everyone's congratulating him, but he's not smiling, and he just takes off his badge, throws it at them, and walks away. That movie stuck with me. And also that we can add that movie to the list as soon as I remember what it's called, because that's a war on crime, right?
I suppose it would be.
Man, we've been putting off that debate on what's a war movie for a long time now. Oh, actually, speaking of which, I got a new recommendation last night. My good buddy Steiner recommended, I think it was Star Trek 6 or one of the Star Trek movies.
Star Trek 6.
I don't friggin' remember, man, but it's up there. And it has to do with the war between humans and Klingons, so it is a war movie. In fact, more so a war movie than a lot of the things we have on the list.
Oh, fair. We can add it. Put it up for
I'll have
debate.
to ask him which Star Trek movie it is. But god damn it, I'm off on a tangent again. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, the lengthy well digging and building scene. Which that was kind of setting up for the whole part where I think it was like 2 nanoseconds after the king died. They're like, "Oh yeah, let's go to war. Yeah, yeah." And then
Yeah, God
and
wills
then
it.
and then blacksmith dude is like, "Okay, y'all are fucking idiots. You're just gonna march off into the desert without a reliable source of water or even supply lines." And they're like, "Nah, we'll be good." And then they get their asses clapped
To
and
be
like
fair, to be
nothing
fair,
flat.
I don't remember exactly how they said it, but it was along the lines of like, if I wanted the opinion of a blacksmith, I would have asked for one. And it's like, that's kind of going to what we were saying earlier. You know, like, what does the blacksmith know about warfare and geopolitics?
Yeah, like you condescending ass. He's right. No one listens to the blacksmith until it's too late.
I loved, like, right at the beginning of the defense of Jerusalem when Orlando Bloom, like, knights every single male in the city. And it was kind of like a retcon moment where, you know, it addresses the issue that we had, which is, oh really, does like a singular training scene and being knighted make you a warrior? And then
Yes.
there's the preacher, bishop, whatever, who sees the knighting of everybody, and he like yells at Orlando Bloom. He's like, you think making someone a knight just makes them a better warrior? And he's like, yeah. And he just walks away. I'm like, oh, so that's the logic we're going by in this movie.
Yeah, I suppose when the massive army's bearing down on you, you need all hands on deck. And what was the size of this army that was bearing down on them? They said it was something ridiculous.
I don't remember the size that they said it was in the movie. Let's see. Why is Google failing me?
Oh yeah, did I tell you I got my hair dyed yesterday?
No.
Cool black.
Cool black.
Last time I got it dyed, they went with warm black, and it made my hair look copper in the light, which was no bueno.
So what I'm getting is like 30,000 guys for the first
That's
Saladin.
that, that's every man, woman, child, and baby in my hometown times two, just marching on Jerusalem. Now I'm wondering if the citizens of my hometown could take Jerusalem.
Today?
God,
No.
I mean, God knows we have enough guns and rednecks.
I feel like the Israelis are rather protective of Jerusalem.
Yes, but facing the army in this movie, I know that seems unfair, but oh, you're thinking it. Don't give me that.
I just okay.
I mean, we
What
don't.
did
I don't. For all I know, we don't have any siege engines.
I don't know. Do you have any spare combines?
Yes, actually, I don't know. I'm sure there's like, oh yeah, there's like a dealership, and well, you know what? To hell with it. I'm counting Fort Pier too. So I guess Pier and Fort Pier combined, and then doubled, because assuming we get access to said resources, and I'm sure there's a shocking amount of people with explosives in Pier. Man, I'm gonna get us put on a watch list, but
I feel like everybody's on some sort of watch list.
well, I hope our names are touching on the government watch list.
What did you think of the whole defense of Jerusalem arc?
I liked it, but the end, spoiler alert, I guess, for anyone that hasn't seen it, at the ending where he's just like, yep, we surrender. That, like, don't get me wrong, I commend him for knowing when a battle is lost and not wanting to waste any more lives and saving the lives of his men, right? But
Right.
if you were a soldier in that army, wouldn't you feel like, hey, Fred kind of died for nothing if we were just going to surrender the whole time?
I think the difference in that is that part of the terms was that they were granted safe passage versus prior to that deal, I think it was of the understanding that if Saladin took Jerusalem, that the city was going to get sacked.
But it was just a takeover after he surrendered, not so much pillaging. I mean, don't get me wrong, and they did do a lot of reconfiguring with the holy symbols and whatnot. What was I going to say? But I did like that scene where he just like what says, "What's Jerusalem worth?" And then Saladin said nothing. Walks 10 feet, turns around, everything. Wait, I
It's a
lied to him. Now I feel bad.
no, I mean it's a I think it's a valid point that could make it should make a lot of people think, which is if depending on how you look at it, like at the end of the day, it is land and dirt and buildings, but because of human nature, we have attached significant importance to that place.
Yeah,
So you could take the nihilistic approach and be like, it's not worth shit, or you could take the ph-
symbolic nature of it
symbolic
all.
philosophical approach, which is like this is the epicenter of everything.
And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no like actual natural resource that's mined or at least taken from Jerusalem, correct? Like there's no precious ores, even anything in the way of like crops or anything, right?
Not that can really think of. I think it was like obviously the city was built there because in the general overall like area and climate, it was more habitable than other places. But I mean, most of the value to that city and location is associated with its religious purposes.
Which again, we that's not natural. We ascribe it to Jerusalem ourselves.
Right.
And yeah, I guess you could also argue that it's at a strategic point as well. That it also makes it valuable. But no, its main source of strategic value is its symbolic value of it being the holy city.
Yeah, for the three Abrahamic religions.
One of my favorite scenes was what was that um, old redheaded dickhead dude? I'm pretty sure he was played by the Hagrid actor.
Let me look.
His whole thing was, "Oh, if you want a war, I can get us a war."
I am what I am.
Yeah, I am what I am, Commander Popeye.
I don't think it's Hagrid.
Hagrid.
Brendan Gleeson.
Ah, He
I
was
will
in.
say his death was very unexpected and powerful. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting to see, like, with most of the major characters, we see the super philosophical side to everybody, where they're like, the man or a king can move a man, da 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 da, da. Or Saladin's like, I am not those men. I am Salahuddin. But then he just like outright cuts Reynald's throat because he uh he offered the chalice full of ice to another person, and he handed it to Reynald.
Yeah. That wasn't meant for you. And
No,
what?
no, it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, well, fuck you. Brendan Gleeson was also in the movie In Bruges, one of my favorite movies.
He was also in was it Heart of the Ocean? Whatever movie was about the Moby Dick.
And I think, yeah, he was also in Banshees of Inisherin.
Mm-hmm.
A little Oscar baity, but I enjoyed it.
No, this movie had a pretty significant cast, because we had Orlando Bloom, we had Liam Neeson, apparently Edward Norton,
Apparently.
Brendan Gleeson. We had Remus Lupin
Yep.
in
We
it.
also Jeremy Irons.
Silence!
They could not have made him look more evil if they tried. Like
And he's supposed
when
to be
he's
the good
first
guy.
when he's first introduced, he's hunched over in the darkness with a scar over his eye, yelling at people in that snarly, dark voice of his. Get out! But
But
also, I
also,
was. Go
we
ahead.
also have Ava Green in it too.
Oh, that's right. She was the queen.
I gotta say, like, I get she's supposed to be the love interest and whatnot, but also she doesn't seem like a like a person worth going after.
How so?
I don't know. She kind of just seems like a bland person in this movie.
She gets a bit more unhinged as it goes along, doesn't it? Or does she?
Yeah, she definitely has a quick downward spiral after her brother dies,
Uh,
but she is also one of the reasons where we see that, like, even with all the philosophical talk, you know, man is man and will always do what is necessary for the retention of power. Because King Baldwin has this long chat with Bailey, and he's like, the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of conscious or nothing at all. And it's like, damn, that's like a mic drop moment right there. And then maybe like 45 minutes later, he's like, so I'm not long for this world. If we assassinate her current husband, will you marry her so that we have somebody we trust becoming king of Jerusalem? And Orlando Bloom's like, no. Like, I'm not going to be the reason somebody gets executed.
yeah, that's a lot to ask. It's heavy, man. But as I was gonna say earlier, I think one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when Brendan Gleeson goes off and acts the fool and gets those people killed, potentially starting a major conflict. And then when he comes back, Baldwin's rightfully pissed. And he takes off his leper glove and he's like, kiss my ring for forgiveness. And you just see it on Brendan Gleeson's face, like, excuse me? Makes him kiss his gross ass leper hands. Then he
But you
beats the
also
shit out
see,
of him.
like, the amount of power that he actually wields, because yeah, you see that moment where he's like, I don't want to, I don't want to kiss your leper hand. But the second he's like, oh, you're serious, he's like, oh, please, God, please forgive me. Did it like just like basically starts making out with his hand. And then he gets, that was
Yeah,
another great
I
moment
think I
is
saw
him
some
getting
tongue.
yeah, him getting bitch slapped by
Yeah,
Baldwin.
man, I choose to believe that Edward Norton and Brendan Gleeson actually had a disagreement on set, and that was Edward Norton demanding forgiveness in character and then beating the shit out of Brendan Gleeson, and they just happened to catch it on film. Like,
Apologize.
apologize. Oh, this is good. Keep rolling. And if I if I recall correctly, wasn't the real King Baldwin blind at this part of his life because of the leprosy?
Yeah, so this movie is highly dramatized. Like
I
it's a
figured.
yeah, it's based on true events. It's the events leading up right to the Third Crusade. At the point in this movie when Baldwin is bitch slapping Brendan Gleeson, the actual King Baldwin uh had lost feeling in like his hands and his feet, was blind, um was basically being carried around on a stretcher. And the other part of this that isn't ever shown or um, mentioned is that Sibylla, she had a kid, and he was Baldwin the Fifth. So like the last year or two of Baldwin the Fourth, the Leper King, he was co-ruling with Baldwin the Fifth, basically doing like on the job training for him. So the whole like, we need you to marry Sibylla and we'll execute her husband thing, like that is just a made up plot line.
I mean, yeah, we got to stretch out the movie somehow and add more drama to it. Don't let the truth get in the way of telling a good story. It's one of the main things I learned in journalism.
That seems
Highly
problematic.
cynical, yes. And I'm of course being facetious. They really pounded it into us to be as ethical as possible. You know, no yellow journalism, no muckraking, never use anonymous sources.
Yeah, well, Balian also swore an oath to always be upright and whatnot, but that didn't stop him from killing a whole bunch of people.
I mean, shit happens, you know. Jack, people died.
I
We
loved
all
I
get a
loved at
little.
the be I loved like one of his initial reaction like conversations with Liam Neeson, like when he's running away from the village because he just murdered somebody, and he's like, I want to come with you, but also just so you know, I've committed murder. And Liam Neeson's like, haven't we all? It just walks away. It's like,
Yeah.
no, not
So,
all of us have.
please, we're already going to hire you. You don't need to try to convince us. It's a minimum 2 felony requirement to even apply for us. And that another scene I really liked was at the very end of the movie when he comes back to his hometown after all that time, and his blacksmith shop, or what's left of it, and he's just like walking around it smiling. And then Mr. Big Man, Richard the Lionheart, comes out and he's like, yeah, let's go to war. Yeah, we're going to take the Holy Land. It's going to be so awesome. We need your help. You want in? And he's like, yeah, good luck with that.
Right. Also, could you imagine Sibylla, like, so Sibylla joins him and she has been royalty her entire life. Could you imagine what that would have been like in reality, where this person who's lived the life of a queen like for decades is like, I'm running away with the blacksmith, and then goes to some medieval poor village in France where it's like, oh, this is
Now
what
you live. Damn, bitch, you live like this?
right.
A medieval version of that meme.
Also, like, you're just going to return to the exact same village? Are we really going to sit here and believe that the village has forgotten who, probably like the most notorious criminal that they've had to this point, like the blacksmith who killed the priest and burnt down his own
Yeah,
village, and then killed all of the like town's sh- uh, sheriff, law enforcement. I like,
yeah, like there's definitely still some hurt feelings in that town, to say the very least.
yeah. Someone tells me they don't care about your exploits in the Holy Land.
Um, I know I'm getting off topic again, but have you seen Ad Astra? Oh, I kind of want to. Well, whatever. We'll talk about it. But I was gonna say, spoiler alert. There's a part. So the main plot of this movie is this dude's dad is missing, presumably dead. But then years later, they get um, readings from where his ship went missing, and they're like, "Oh, hey, your dad might be still alive." And he travels from planet to planet. And before I go even further, let me just add that this is one of 3 movies that I got tricked into seeing that was literally just Heart of Darkness. All the same plot points, a lot of dangers, same plot structure. Anyway, so that's
That's
the
kind of like
final
the analogy that Harry Potter is just, or
British anime.
that, or what is it? Star Wars is science fiction Harry Potter.
It's the hero's journey. It's the best way I've heard it described is British Naruto. Like, it has all the cliches and hallmarks of a shonen anime. But god damn it, more on that later. I'm getting off topic on off topic. Damn you. But anyway, at the final leg of the journey, they're like, "Oh, sorry, you can't come along. We're not going to allow you on this spaceship. We're going to send these 4 guys instead." So he's like, "You know what? Fuck that." And he sneaks onto the ship as it's launching, and they like figure it out and they try to get him off, but the other 4 inadvertently end up dying, and he just essentially hijacks this multi-million-dollar spaceship to go see his dad. And events transpire. He meets his dad, played by Tommy Lee Jones, and his dad dies on the way back. And then it smash cuts to him back on Earth, and he's just sitting in a bar drinking whiskey. No. Okay, no, his ass would be in Leavenworth. Like, he admittedly
Time heals all wounds.
he didn't directly kill those 4 people, mind you, but he very much caused their death. And I doubt the military cares. And this is on top of stealing a very, very expensive piece of military equipment to go see his dad after he was put into custody, which he escaped from. No, like, his ass has been the brig. Did they just forget? And this kind of comes back to the goldfish memory of his village about how they kind of forget that he killed his brother, burned down his place of business, and then got a bunch of law enforcement people killed. Maybe
It's like
was
the
it,
Skyrim analogy, where it's like you walk into any tavern, it's like, "Hello there, traveler." And it's like there's just a stack of bodies outside.
sometimes they will remember you, because I've had guards say, like, "Wait a minute, I remember you," and then arrest you or attack you, which is a nice feature, admittedly, but it's sometimes really annoying. Can't I commit a little crime as a treat?
Isn't that the only reason to play open world games?
Exactly. Just to get a little silly every now and again.
Unless you're playing Assassin's Creed, then, oh, you killed a civilian.
Yeah, I'm gonna get desynchronized. uh, I have thoughts about Assassin's Creed, but this is not the time nor podcast for that. Um,
I was
so
severely disappointed not to see Altair in this movie.
very. No, actually, he was in the movie. Didn't you see? He was in the group of priests praying. You probably didn't notice him.
Oh, that's right.
See what I did there?
Yep,
Thanks.
he blended in.
I'm quite hilarious. But yeah, Altair blends in with priests and whatnot. His descendant blends in with hookers. uh, well, and then yeah, this movie kind of drug out, but 2.5 hours, I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah, it did seem like a long movie, but it there were so many moments and scenes in this movie that you're like, okay, this was worth the wait.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit build up.
My absolute so I have two favorite moments. The one is the philosophical moment we already talked about with the chess. But the second one is during the siege of Jerusalem when all the siege machines are rolling up, and it's like the siege towers and the battering ram, and you see all the trebuchets firing off, and I'm like, damn, this is impressive.
Yeah, where it's just like darkness and then you see them light up.
Right.
Ooh.
And but the scene that really got me was the one where it's like a pitched battle at the very top of the walls, and like in a heated moment, like Liam, or not Liam Neeson, Orlando Bloom almost dies, but is able to like fend off his attackers, and he just yells out "Fire!" And you see a bunch of just like grappling hooks attack the siege towers, and then they
And
like,
pull them over.
yeah, they all fall over like dominoes, and it was. I laughed in that scene because it reminded me of when we watched 300 with the like mushroom cloud like explosion in the background with Xerxes moment. And this just reminded me of that, where it's like you could just imagine Saladin in that moment being like, God damn it.
Foiled again. And yeah, the whole them throwing those fire bombs down on it after it was collapsed. That was just salt in the wound, man.
What I will say is I enjoyed this movie, but it definitely seems like it was kind of an end to a genre. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair, because there's been plenty, I would describe this as a swords and sandals film. And swords and sandals films have been made since this film. And you could argue that 300 is a swords and sandals film, but not really. I mean, 300 is more of a comic book movie than anything. But I mean, the true, like, we have thousands and thousands of actors doing these giant ancient battles on these like huge set pieces with a cast of just like dozens of big name actors in them. This feels like it was the last good one of this genre, but also it wasn't good enough to continue the genre, if you will. Because, I mean, after this movie came out, there was like Immortals or the like Wrath of the Titans remake.
300.
Yeah, and they're all set in the same time period, or more mythological,
Kind
if you
of.
will. But we we don't really get movies like this or like Troy anymore.
We did have, well, okay, it was a while ago, but we had that Robin Hood movie that was kind of similar to this, a medieval war epic.
I
Which
mean, the
it was
medieval war epic side of it really was only in the beginning of that film.
no, there's like that big battle towards the end, right? Because it was
Yes,
all about how he became the outlaw, not so much his exploits as an outlaw.
this film to me just seems like the death rattle of the swords and sandals genre.
And it really is a product of its time, because that, you're right, that absolutely was a big thing in the 2000s, the historical epic, be it the Siege of Jerusalem. And mind you, Lord of the Rings is not historical unless it actually happened, but that's for another podcast. But
Earth Zero.
We're going too deep, man. We're going to get shut down. We're not supposed to know all of this. But yeah, you get where I'm coming from, where it's a medieval-esque fantasy epic, not so much a historical epic, but yes, and I don't even know if I can call it swords and sandals, more like swords and boots. Sword and boot epic. Because when I hear swords and sandals, I think ancient Greece, Rome.
Right. You think Gladiator, you think Troy.
300.
Right. Which is all the more confusing to me because it's like, so this movie was directed by Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott also did Gladiator. And I recently saw somewhere that he's looking to make a Gladiator 2, and I'm like, why? Just
Dude, have you seen his proposed plot for Gladiator 2? It is certifiably insane.
Was it
And
zombie Marcus Aurelius raises an army of the dead? Like,
it's better than that. So the idea was to have Marcus Aurelius resurrect, but in different conflicts throughout history. And one of the resurrections was him as a U.S. Marine in Vietnam, but he survives that, and he later becomes a commanding general in the fucking Pentagon. And like, that is so certifiably insane. I want to see it so bad. I make no illusions that it is in any way a great movie, but just to see how batshit he makes it.
Not everything needs a sequel.
I know.
Imagine if there was an Apollo 13.5.
The story NASA doesn't want you to know.
Makes me think of, did you ever see the movie Apollo 18?
No, but I've heard about it. It's like, the tagline is like, the reason we never went back.
Yeah, so Apollo 18 is like the secret mission to the moon where we find like a killer alien, and it's just nonsense ensues. But
the nonsense ensues.
What are you drinking tonight?
I was drinking some peach tea, but I've drank all of my peach tea.
Fair.
I'm on the wagon again.
Any particular reason why?
Felt like it.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I felt like it. Yeah, it's just something I feel like everyone should do every once in a while. I did make an exception for when Johnny Hardwick died this week. God rest his soul. Yeah, our listeners may not know that name, but you know him by his voice, Dale Gribble.
Shh-shh-shaw.
Shh-shh-shaw. Yeah. I watched some Dale-centric episodes and had a beer in his honor. That's what he would have liked. At least I think that's what he would have liked.
I think so. I am currently drinking the finest Stella Rosa has to offer.
Ooh, fancy.
I know.
Getting too bougie for us.
I feel like wine was appropriate for this episode.
Yeah, red wine. I do like red wine. If the ocean were red wine and I were a duck, I'd swim to the bottom and never come up. Don't snap for that. I stole it from a song called Rye Whiskey. Rye whiskey, rye whiskey, rye whiskey, I cry. If I don't get rye whiskey, then I surely will
Will
die.
die.
If the ocean were rye whiskey and I were a duck, I'd swim to the bottom and never come up.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I know I have quite a hell of a voice, really. I've been told I should go out for musicals, but I don't know if I want to.
Well, if Pierre ever does a rendition of Cannibal the Musical, I think you should.
Oh, absolutely. I really should finish that movie sometime. It's delightful. But I got distracted.
That or Hamilton.
We peer players did a what the hell is that called? The Man from La Mancha a couple years ago, and it was amazing. What I'm sure we did another musical, but I can't think of. But man, that was quite the spectacle.
Imagine if this movie was a musical.
Jerusalem, the musical.
I stabbed you. I am
what
what I am would be a great song.
what is the worth of Jerusalem? Nothing. Everything.
Take it away, Jeremy Irons.
Take it away, Remus Loop. Oh wait, he's dead. Oh, another thing I liked in this movie was the part when he knows the army's bearing down on him, so he like has the help go out and make piles of rocks and paint them white at certain intervals, so he knows when to start the trebuchet bombardment, and he knows when to start the arrow volley. Which again,
I
that's
like the
just
part in that scene where the soldiers in Saladin's army like
yeah.
passes the rocks and they kind of look down like, what the fuck?
They don't like kick him over or anything. They're respectful. And but this goes back to the point of this is blacksmithing 101, knowing how to wage a siege. Every blacksmith knows this for some reason. You never know when it might come in
Absolutely.
handy. So this brings up an interesting point. Do you have a skill or just a random bit of knowledge that you taught yourself just in case?
That I taught myself just in case.
Yeah, for a very, very specific circumstance. Like, for instance, Frank, good buddy of mine, he knows how to play the piano, but he also knows how to play like 30s and 40s swing music, like the ragtime up fast paced music on a piano. And he said he learned it just in case a gangster holds him at gunpoint and says, "Play some piano."
I hate to break it to you, Frank. I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm glad that he's ready, though. I'm glad that he's prepared.
No, I can't say I've ever done any kind of preparation like that. I do have skills. I just nothing of that nature.
I also once tricked him into playing the song "The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down." If you don't know the name of that song, you probably know it as the Looney Tunes theme song. And he like played it really slow at first. And I was like, no, you got to play it faster. And he played it a bit faster. I was like, no, faster. Good times.
So I think it's about time we rated this film.
What was it? So before I continue, what's our agreed rating? Because I've got my proposition, but I want to hear yours.
I would say cups of ice in the desert.
I was gonna say painted piles of rocks.
I like yours better.
I don't know how invested I was in this movie, other than the memes and the funniness, and I guess the grand spectacle of the final battle. And I'm gonna give this 2 painted piles of rocks out of 5 or 0.5, but 3 piles of painted rocks, but one of them's knocked over.
Okay.
So, actually, let's hear yours.
I think I would give this 4 piles of rocks, but one of the piles of rocks are not painted, so you can't really see it. I think there's a lot of great dialogue in this movie, and I think there's a lot of great fight scenes, but it is a long movie. It is kind of drawn out, and there are parts that I wish that were in this that aren't, and there are things in here that I'm like, this is pointless to me. So yeah, I'll give it the essentially 3.5 rating, or 3 1/4.
All right, let's see what Rotten Tomatoes says. So, it has a 39% critic rating, but a 72% audience score.
It's a pretty big
Yeah,
spread between the
honestly,
audience and critics.
33%. And I'm gonna do that thing I usually do, where I meet in the middle. So let's see. Let's do some math. I'm not good at it. 52% is the about midpoint. 50, 52, 53. But I don't know if I'd even give it that. And I hate myself for saying this, but I think I got to go with the critics on this one.
I think I wonder if the proximity of this film to the war in Iraq had anything to do with it. Because
Yeah,
we were 2 years out from toppling, uh, or we were 2 years post toppling Saddam at this
I
point.
I forgot to bring
So
that up earlier. Actually, it does seem like I don't want to say the P word, but propaganda at first, at least. But then they
um,
actually say, this fight's
I
pointless, and then leave.
I think the main market for this movie probably was not ready to see Islamic culture in a positive light yet, considering we were like still in the heat of pitched battle with them in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I'd have to imagine that it had some sort of impact on the initial viewership and ratings of it.
Yeah, it came out during a very tumultuous time.
I can't remember if America was on the downside. Like, I can't remember if America had really turned on the war in Iraq at this point yet, but it still seems like it would have been a pretty contentious time for this film to come out.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. It's
So,
complicated.
yeah. So that was Kingdom of Heaven. God wills it!
Deus Vult. Deus Vult.
What is your choice for next week?
Um, some of you may have heard of it. I don't want to call it an obscure movie, but it's more well known than that. It's called When the Wind Blows. And I see you Googling, don't fucking do that. I want to watch this movie with you, and I want you to go in as naked as possible. God damn it, you looked it up, didn't you?
I just wanted to see when it came out.
1980 something.
Uh, okay.
It's an animated movie, but rest assured, it is a war movie.
Okay. I will
Okay.
trust you on that.
Finally. I gained his trust. Did everyone hear that? I want that out there for the record that I finally have John's trust. Boy, I can't wait to squander that.
May I inquire which conflict this movie is about?
Oh, you'll see. You'll see. I know I'm being cryptic, but it'll make sense when we watch it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think I've bedeviled John enough from this.
Fair enough. So, if you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. The stars do matter. If you want additional content from us, we are over on Instagram and Facebook at the Armchair Commanders Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel under the name of History Apprentice. Do you have anything else, Jack?
No, I do not.
Alrighty. Well, we've greatly appreciated you all joining us and listening. And until next time, I've been John.
And I'm Jack.
We'll catch you next week. Say it, God damn it.
Oh, bye.